Coming up, a developing story over in Leon County. A manhunt underway for a convicted murderer. We'll bring you details ahead. And preserving our history and telling a story, you're going to want to check out these little kiddos dressing up for Statue Day right here in the Brazos Valley. Your KRHD News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley. This is KRHD News.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Krhd News. In a developing story this evening, an escaped convict is on the run in Leon County. Rebecca Fiedler is in Centerville, where police have set up a perimeter as they continue to search the area for the suspect.
An atmosphere of fear has descended onto parts of Leon County tonight as fugitive murderer Gonzalo Lopez is still at large. Still, several law enforcement agencies are working to catch him. The people living near Centerville can only lock their doors and wait.
We have a TDC guard with a shotgun at our driveway, at our neighbor's driveway, and I don't know if there are any other guards down further.
Those living in Centerville, like Susan Tyler, are glad they own firearms to protect their families. As the sun sets, a killer with ties to drug cartels could be hiding in the shadows.
I have a feeling we're going to be sleeping with one eye open, maybe reading a book, who knows, watching TV, but something. It's going to be hard to rest tonight.
Court documents show Lopez kidnapped and killed a man in Weslaco with a pickaxe, dumping his body in a shallow grave. Officials say the convict attacked guards on board a prison bus, causing it to crash off Highway 7. Now, folks here can only wait until he's caught.
There's a law enforcement agency through 911.
Authorities say Lopez took off on foot wearing a white prison jumpsuit with TDCJ stenciled on the back. If you see him, call 911 immediately. We'll keep you updated as the story develops. Reporting in Centerville, Rebecca Fiedler, KRHD News.
And authorities in the area are asking people for the next 24 hours to avoid a triangular section of Centerville over to Marquay, from Marquay up to Buffalo, and then Buffalo back over to Centerville for the next 12 to 24 hours. Again, that's I-45 south to Centerville west on Highway 7 over to Marquay, from Marquay northbound on Highway 79 up to Buffalo, and then from Buffalo southbound on I-45 down to Centerville. Obviously, they can't do much about stopping traffic on I-45. Highway 7 is closed at this time. Meanwhile, an 11th death is linked to the Astroworld Festival last year, we're now learning. In a lawsuit, a couple says their unborn child died after the mother was trampled and crushed during the Travis Scott concert. Now, the lawsuit did not say how long after the concert she miscarried or how far she was into her pregnancy. Texas law does allow would-be parents to sue for the wrongful death of an unborn child. The concert organizer, Live Nation, filing a response to the lawsuit denying all claims. It's a story positively Brazos Valley. It was history in motion today at one Bryan ISD elementary school as fourth grade students got dressed up as historical figures of Texas. Fourth graders at Sam Houston Elementary put on their annual Living Statues Day event early this morning. Students and staff and visitors walking through the hallways learning about historical Texans, all a part of this fourth grade social studies project. Students dressed as such historical figures like Santa Anna, Stephen F. Austin, and even Willie Nelson.
It's been really fun to watch them work through this. It started off with them really just reading biographies and seeing, is there any commonality between me and this person? And then that kind of motivated them to research it. They wrote their own biographies on this, and then using that information, I then empowered them to say, okay, now we're going to become them.
The students also dressed up as historical Texas athletes, artists, and politicians. A retired U.S. Marine who always put others before himself is finally fulfilling his dream of getting his associates in business.
A retired U.S. Marine who always put others before himself is fulfilling his dream of getting his Associate of Science in business.
It's the pursuit of a dream, accomplishing a goal that I set out on, 25 plus years ago. I'm the first one in my family to actually go to college at any level and to get a degree. I was the first one in my family to graduate high school.
Mike says it took being heartbroken after losing both of his parents within 5 months of each other to have the motivation to keep going.
When I lost my parents, that was probably the motivation I needed to push me. You realize that, life is short.
Mike now looks to joining his youngest son in his senior year at Texas A&M this fall and owes credit to his academic advisor for helping his dreams come true.
And Miss Reyes was probably that inspiration I needed to help me realize that my goals were achievable, because she knew exactly what I needed to do and what courses to set me up on in the path that would give me the best opportunity for acceptance into Mays.
While Mike is an inspiration to others, Rebecca Reyes says Mike was her inspiration.
It was really inspirational to serve someone who all these years put so much time and effort and energy into making sure that his own children had the quality of education that he always imagined for them. And so to see him come back to school after such a long time and finally say, you know what, it's my turn, was really incredible.
After Mike finishes his degree at Texas A&M, he plans to go into medical equipment and device sales to help save people's lives.
Roche hopes to create scholarship funds for other students like him, giving them the opportunity to fulfill their dreams as well. If you want to stream Roche's graduation, head on over to our website at KRHDnews.com. In the Brazos Valley, Diamond Dixon, KRHD News.
And Michael graduated tonight, and you might be able to check out his graduation celebration over at Blynn's YouTube channel, or just go to our website. Meanwhile, during the summer season, everything seems to come together. More people visiting College Station and more tourists hitting the streets.
College Station's Parks and Recreations released the summer 2022 schedule on their website. Sport tournaments include football, soccer, and softball. One event happening this summer will be the Aggieland Classic Senior Softball Tournament in July. Event director Keith Parker says he's ready to descend on Aggieland.
This will be our 11th year that we've been at Veterans Park for this tournament, and we can expect 40 to 45 teams coming into town. They'll bring in 14 to 18 players per team. So there's a lot of softball that goes on.
With a lot of sports this summer in the city of College Station means a lot of people.
You start adding those numbers up quickly, you can get to 2,000 to 3,000 people here per weekend, per event. And then you have multiple events on a weekend. We see such an influx just that one weekend.
And a lot of people means extra tourism dollars.
When people come into town, they stay in our hotels. And luckily they go out and they spend money. They go to the restaurants, they go to local businesses, and those dollars add up quick.
Ballo says he predicts College Station to be the Texas City of Sports this summer.
Typically, when you think of a summer destination, you're going to the beach or you're going to a main attraction, like an amusement park or something like that. But we pride ourselves on our sports and our ability to host youth athletes in College Station.
Qualifiers of the Aggieland Classic Tournament will be headed to the finals in Las Vegas in September. The rest of the College Station summer sports schedule is available on our website at KRHDnews.com. In College Station, Chris Talley, KRHD News.
On Wednesday, a federal appeals court reinstating a Texas law that prohibits large social media companies from banning users over their political opinions. Some politicians have been vocal about platforms like Twitter having what they say is an anti-conservative bias. This law requires those platforms with over 50 million users to disclose why they remove content and suspend accounts. Critics saying the bill is an attack on the First Amendment. No written opinion explaining the decision has yet been given. Certain Instagram filters are now disabled for users in Texas. This comes after the Attorney General filed a lawsuit against Meta, citing the company's alleged misuse of facial recognition technology. The lawsuit says filters using facial geometry break Texas facial recognition laws. The technology reportedly learns a user's face and can automatically tag a person without them even knowing. The company maintains the technology is not facial recognition and isn't used to identify anyone. Well, we're in for a decent evening across the Brazos Valley. Yes, of course, it is on the hot and warm side no matter where you are. If you are outdoors or have been outdoors tonight, it is definitely feeling a little bit sticky out there. We are going to see not too much in terms of change as we go forward, but we do want to detail some updates that we have this evening. This is the updated drought monitor for today. You'll notice here in the Brazos Valley, well, not much change. Our neighbors to the west, mainly central West Texas, are dealing with the worst of it. Here in the Brazos Valley, you'll notice we do have some spots that have been on the drier side of things, and we do have one chance, it looks like, for maybe some showers in the near future, depending on what you consider near in the Brazos Valley. Going forward, here's a look at our highs. Once again, just underneath that record of 94 degrees for our record high today. And this trend continues going forward, where we see those highs in the 90s, lows close to 70 degrees. We're actually in for a little bit cooler weather in terms of our morning, just underneath that 70-degree mark across the Brazos Valley. You'll see here lows close to, say, low 70s in the warmer spots. The further south you go, a little bit further as we look forward towards our week ahead, you'll notice those high temperatures once again back to 90 degrees. And here's some more change depending on how you've been liking the weather going forward. It's going to be hotter going into next week, believe it or not. High temperatures are going to take a little bit of a jump up as we see those highs for next week on Monday, potentially close to that 99-degree mark. But at the moment, we have 98 forecast for the start of next week. Overall, partly cloudy skies are going to take us forward into the week ahead. There's that next chance of precipitation we were talking about. It looks like maybe next weekend, a chance for maybe an isolated shower or storm popping into the area, but it's going to be even hotter, folks. This remarkable May just continues with the hot weather, high temperatures above the mid-90s through the weekend.
Advances in self-driving cars are happening faster than regulators can keep up. Mercedes was just allowed to start selling level 3 technology in Germany, which means the car can drive fully on its own on certain stretches of roads under certain conditions. Mercedes wants to offer it in the United States by the end of the year. There are still no federal regulations for autonomous passenger vehicles. Congress is pressuring the Department of Transportation for framework, admitting that the United States is behind. So what you're looking at here is an example of level 2 technology that is already on roads and being tested by safety groups like AAA, which provided us the video you're looking at here. Now, these active driving assistance systems, or semi-autonomous features, are designed to give drivers a break from always having their hands on the wheel, but they are still required to keep their eyes on the road.
These level 2 systems are in no way a self-driving type of system.
Now, AAA engineers put driver assistance features from Hyundai, Subaru, and Tesla through various scenarios, and they released what they found. In routine situations like a car slowing down in front of you or when you approach a bicyclist, the technology did pretty well in slowing down the car and alerting the driver. Now, when it came to less predictable situations like an oncoming car weaving into your lane or a bicyclist crossing in front of you, most of the time the technology failed.
We were more or less just looking for some kind of very obvious alert to notify the driver that a potential collision was imminent.
Yeah, you saw that collision with that biker. Now, the crash test results are shared with manufacturers so they can make improvements, but responsibility is still on the driver.
Better and more robust driver monitoring systems should be integrated within these assistance features to make sure that drivers are not actively or passively misusing them. So in other words, a driver-facing front camera should be included with these level 2 systems.
Driver surveys found that they want these current features improved over the development of fully self-driving cars. You can ask 2 questions with the same meaning, but get a different response. If you ask, how's the weather? Many of us are likely to answer good or bad. But if you ask, what's the weather like? We may answer with something more descriptive, like sunny or rainy. Researchers at Ohio State took this same concept and they applied it to mental health assessments. And we do want to warn you that this story includes a discussion about suicide.
The way that we approach suicide risk screening is to ask people about these thoughts of death or thoughts of ending their lives. And we've known for decades that around half of those who attempt suicide or die by suicide will in essence say, no, I'm not having those thoughts right before they engage in the behavior. And what these findings would suggest is that it might be because we're asking the wrong questions, and that very subtle shifts in language and how we kind of think about the issue at hand can actually make a big difference.
Researchers found this especially had an impact on gun owners. They were more responsive to the question, have you considered a method of suicide compared to have you had suicidal thoughts?
Easy access to lethal methods is one of the strongest determinants of suicide attempt outcome and fatality. And we also know that the vast majority of people who survive a suicide attempt will actually never go on to die by suicide.
Researchers are now pushing healthcare facilities to update how questions are asked on mental health assessments.
There's a lot of policies that many systems have that make it actually very difficult to do something so simple. And so I think all that is to say is that what healthcare providers could do in the meantime is they could just verbally ask the question.
The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is available 24/7. That number, 800-273-8255. Well, malls, they used to be the places we always went for clothes or appliances or maybe just to hang out. Let's face it though, times have changed. We do a lot of that stuff online these days. Through the pandemic, healthcare has moved more online as well. There will always be the need though for in-person care, and that's proving to be an opportunity to give malls new life.
You talk to anyone here, they'll tell you this is where I came on the weekends to hang out with my friends.
For decades, it would have been hard for Joy Stiles and me to do an interview right here.
I mean, there were cars here every day. The Macy's was open. We had a JCPenney's, a Dillard's, and a Sears. Those were all the anchor stores.
But today outside the Global Mall at the Crossings, we don't have much company. This mall in the heart of the district she represents on the Nashville Metro Council closed in 2019.
People have been complaining in the community for years about how this has been sitting here empty.
Today on site, there is a library and a community college.
It just was like a very eerie feeling to know from when it used to be a vibrant mall to being very empty.
As well as the community center Thomas Floyd runs, where you can see inside the mall through this big window.
Yeah, it's just pretty wild.
I could see caution tape and an empty food court, but Stiles tells me one day we'll see patients coming to see their doctor.
It's going to afford everyone in the area the opportunity to be able to get to a medical appointment within 10 minutes.
The city of Nashville is buying the mall and plans to lease 600,000 square feet of it to Vanderbilt University Medical Center, which turned an old mall about 20 minutes away into a healthcare facility back in 2009.
They don't have to build a new facility. They don't have to pour a foundation. They don't have to dig. It's right here.
Medical facilities that really, you want privacy. You don't want a lot of windows. So depending on which parts of the mall you're taking over, malls are pretty convenient.
Few people know more about what we'll do with empty malls than Georgia Tech architecture professor Ellen Dunham Jones. She's kept a database on stuff like this for more than 30 years. She says almost a third of 1,500 former mall sites across the country are being repurposed beyond retail, becoming office space, apartments, and in the case of the 35 on this map, places for people to receive medical care, housing clinics and other care facilities. Since the pandemic started, she says a dozen more have announced plans to use empty space for healthcare.
I realize that for most people, they don't know what health equity is or have never heard of it, but they definitely know it when they see it.
I asked Tennessee Justice Center's Kanika Young if there's anything we're overlooking as medical care enters the mall space. Her group works to make sure everyone's access to healthcare is fair.
You know, with over 15,000 uninsured people in this zip code alone, will just having the facility actually meet those growing community needs.
She says improving transportation is also key. Vanderbilt told me they don't have specifics on what they'll put in this mall space and that it's years away from seeing patients. Councilwoman Stiles says a performing arts center is also part of the plan.
This is going to be, yet again, a focal point for the community, but in a whole new way.
Yeah, really neat stuff there. All right, final check of our lineup today. Millions of Americans are still quitting their jobs every single month. But now, some of those at new gigs aren't really liking it. What career experts say you can do if you find yourself regretting your decision. A record number of people are still quitting their jobs. 4.5 million Americans did it in March alone. That's 3% of the total workforce. But job switch regret is a real thing that's happening right now.
People moved too fast. They were prioritizing the wrong perks and the wrong benefits. And the challenge of being remote and the remote hiring process, folks just did not get a chance to ask all of the right questions or really get those culture cues to let them know this is a good place for me.
Now, Andrew McCaskill with LinkedIn says if you are thinking about leaving your current job, consider talking with your manager first, obviously, but you may be surprised about how much they'll be willing to work with you to find a different opportunity within the company. A growing number of people who quit are even going back to their old jobs now. These people are called boomerangs, and they accounted for 4.5% of all new hires among companies on LinkedIn last year, which is up from 2019 when it was 3.9%.
Part of it was during the pandemic, it was harder to sink roots into a company. I missed some of the colleagues, and the confidence that I could do important work and add value and have impact was the most important thing.
Jim Klimas worked in HR at Adobe, but he left in 2020 for a new job. Last year, he went back to Adobe after just a year and a half. Now, the average time that Americans boomerang is also going down, going from 22 months to 17 months, according to LinkedIn. Historically, boomeranging has been looked at as a negative thing, but that's not the case right now with how tight the job market is and how employees have more of a voice than maybe they've ever had before.
I think it's the first time we've seen employers really welcoming that trend as well to say, we'd love to have you back here.
Your old job may be filled now, but there still may be opportunities inside the enterprise for you to come back to the company and take all of the skills that you used to have and the things that you've learned since and have a really high impact.
Now, McCaskill says if you stay at a company a short period of time, make sure you have a thought out answer because you're going to be asked about that in your next interview. And he says you should really just be honest if it wasn't a good fit for you, or maybe it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. Your future employer should respect that honesty, they say, but also make sure that anytime you are leaving a company, you do it on the best terms possible. Now, some tenants are facing sticker shock, and they're now looking for innovative solutions to confront rising rents. Tomorrow, why even places that have rent control aren't immune to rent increases.
Thanks so much for watching Krhd News at 10. I'm Garrett Hoddle. Jimmy Kimmel is up next, and Good Morning Texas with Paige Ellenberger is on the air tomorrow at 5 a.m. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening.